Yo, Pierre, you want to come out here?
Before we continue with this story, I think we should first look at who Laken Riley was, and how this beautiful soul touched so many people. Born on January the 10th, 2002 to her mother Alison Phillips and her father Jason Riley, Laken grew up in Marietta, which is a beautiful part of Georgia.
Yeah,
She was one of those people who knew
ago.
exactly what she wanted out of life, and she had chosen her path at a very young age. Throughout her teenage years, Laken grew a deep passion for nursing and caring for other people. This passion would eventually lead her to attend the University of Georgia and later enroll in a nursing program at Augusta Medical College's campus in Athens. While there, she was a cherished member of the Axo sorority found within the University of Georgia and held her sisters and friends in high regard. That's because Laken, well, she was all about her friends and family. And she loved her people just as much as her people loved her. Friends describe her as kind-hearted and someone with a love for caring. And that is why her aspiration to become a nurse was so fitting. It was simply in her DNA. She was also an exceptional nanny for 2 young children and spread joy with her infectious smile wherever she went. You could usually find her running, singing, studying, or simply just walking to Circle K with a friend to buy a Diet Coke. In addition to serving others, Laken was devoted to serving the Lord. Her dedication to spreading God's word inspired her to join in on mission trips through the church, and her love for the Lord was evident in every aspect of her life. And after taking a look at her Instagram, well, her profile actually wants me to live a life in Georgia. She clearly had a very happy childhood growing up, filled with incredible friends and amazing trips to the countryside. Her family remembers her as a fantastic daughter, sister, friend, and an extraordinary person. So when they learned of the terrible news, it understandably shattered them. But ominous witness reports of a hooded figure began to flood in almost as quickly as the devastating news of her death. It all started with another female jogger who claimed to have seen a man dressed in a navy blue jacket with black gloves and a hood. As she ran past him, she noticed how eerily still and silent he stood by the lake, paying no attention to her or anyone else whatsoever. He was standing by the lake and seemingly engrossed in his phone, and so, armed with this information, detectives began to scrutinize all surveillance cameras within the local vicinity, not only to spot Laken jogging, but also to see if anyone else was trailing her. And what they discovered was deeply unsettling. Surveillance footage of this man begins multiple hours before her death. At 6:52 a.m., a male wearing dark slides, dark-colored pants, a dark-colored jacket, and a grey sling bag can be seen exiting the As You Like apartment complex. Notably, the As You Like apartment complex is only minutes away from where Laken's body was found, and is southwest of the lake and where the jogger had spotted him. Within this surveillance footage, the man can be seen walking around,
everything's in the same
stalking
vicinity.
and surveying the area as if he were looking for something or someone. And 7 minutes later, he can then be seen attempting to force his way into the front door of a student apartment complex. The front door in question did not belong to Laken herself, but to another young female student. Notably, she had been showering at the time with the blinds to her ground floor bedroom apartment open. The man then tried to force himself inside for several minutes before eventually giving up and then briefly walking away. I say briefly because over the next 56 minutes, he then returns to her front apartment door 5 times to try and open it.
Then you stupid, bro. You're doing this in an apartment complex. And she said this is... So this is a dorm? Right? Either way, dorm, apartment complex, there's going to be cameras everywhere. You trying to break in here and do all this good... I forgot what the statistic was, but there's a statistic that I read not too long ago. I think I might have watched it in a YouTube video. But it's like, you don't even know the amount of times that you are on camera daily. Like, you are on camera probably hundreds of times. Whether if that's you walking around and somebody's taking a photo and they get you in the background. Or somebody's taking a video, whatever the case may be, or you're on a security camera. You don't even know how many security cameras that you walk past every day that you got your face on. Y'all niggas just out here just randomly just opening doors and shit. Yeah. Trying to go in doors and windows and shit, and you don't think nobody is watching? You don't think there's a camera anywhere? You don't feel like paranoid at all, like to do this out in the open, right, in broad daylight, right? And there's a big ass yellow light flashing right next to the door, and you're still trying to break in there, bro. I'm baffled.
7:57 a.m., the young woman living there finally realized that someone was at her front door. That is when she called the police to report that someone was trying to break in. And when the man noticed this, he fled the area immediately.
Okay, and what's going on? I was in the shower and then I heard some noises. Someone was trying to open the door, and then I said, excuse me, and then they just ran away, and then now they kept trying to look through my window.
Just over an hour later, at 9:05 a.m., another surveillance camera captured Laken running along Milledge Avenue extension towards the bus stop. Dressed in all black and holding a mobile phone, she then veers eastward towards the lake. But this is not all that police officers would find. In fact, some of the evidence left behind was intentionally made by Laken herself. We don't quite know what was going on at the time, but only 6 minutes later at 9:11 a.m., Laken ominously made an emergency phone call to the AC Police Department.
9/11.
Clark County 911. Hello, this is Clark County 911. Hello, Clark County 911. Can anyone hear me? Clark County 911.
Is that him doing it? That noise in the back. I hope that's not what I think it is.
Nothing was said during this phone call. A male voice could be heard saying okay roughly 50 seconds in, before eventually Laken's phone was disconnected. ACPD tried to call her back 1 minute later at 9:12 and a second time at 9:13, but both times Laken failed to pick up the phone. This means that whatever had happened to her, it was likely right in this moment. Call logs will also indicate that she had spoken to her mother only several minutes before this phone call took place, which was a horrible turn of events. At the crime scene, detectives would observe several linear marks to her torso.
Just imagine that, bro. If you got kids, man, I'm not even gonna put that picture in your head. But just imagine that, man. Somebody you close to, you chopping it up on the phone with them. All right, cool. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna call you back. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna finish this run. Okay. Ooh, I'll holler at you later. Boop. Hang up the phone. Several minutes later, they're no longer breathing. They're not alive anymore.
One linear mark under her underwear and severe injuries to the left side of her head, with a bloody rock found nearby. Laken was pronounced dead at the scene after emergency responders arrived, and based off the data they found from her smartwatch, her heart stopped beating at 9:28 a.m. By nightfall, the word of Laken Riley's death had spread far and wide across the country, and the general public were outraged that yet another woman was murdered for sex. Now, despite the short time frame, police already had surveillance footage, multiple witness reports, and a phone call. But to them, that simply wasn't enough. And so they decided to do a little bit more digging, quite literally through dumpsters. And what they found was groundbreaking for their investigation. It was on the evening of her death that a police officer was rummaging through dumpsters just outside the Azulike apartment complex. And while peering into one of the dumpsters, he would find something rather peculiar. It was a black jacket, and found on that jacket was what appeared to be bloodstains. And after taking an even closer look, he realized that there was dark hair wrapped around one of the buttons. Now, this was highly suspicious, because especially in a moment like this, it would be very unusual for someone to just simply throw away their bloodstained jacket in a bin without wrapping it up first. Officers surveying the area would also notice that one of the local neighbors had a Ring doorbell camera camera which was overlooking the dumpster. And of course, this could be very instrumental in seeing who dumped it in the first place. And after requesting to look at the footage from the
this is one of those situations where you think you wouldn't even be recorded at, nigga. You taking your trash out and you want like 10 different Ring cameras, right? Don't even know it. Don't even know it. You taking the trash out, thug, and you on camera.
They found exactly what they were looking for. The same man caught in the previous surveillance footage was seen placing the jacket into the dumpster at 9:43 a.m. And notably, this was only 15 minutes after Laken's heart had stopped beating. One key piece of information here is the hat that he was wearing. We'll get back to it later, but all you need to remember for now is that it was a black Adidas hat. This footage would also lead
Adidas? Adidas, nigga. Adidas? What's a Adidas? What?
Information here is the hat that he was wearing. We'll get back to it later, but all you need to remember for now is that it was a black Adidas hat. This footage would also lead police officers to another key piece of evidence, and that's because he was then recorded dumping something into the bush nearby, and after following the footage to that bush, they found a pair of bloody gloves. Detectives reviewed the DNA found on the gloves and the jacket, and forensic analysis would soon confirm that, tragically, it did in fact belong to Laken Riley. It also did.
Then y'all be doing stupid stuff like leaving the evidence. No, not. Let's not burn it. Let's not burn it. Let's not do that. Let's throw it in the dumpster. Then let's touch the dumpster with our bare hands and leave DNA and fingerprints. Then let's throw the gloves that we did everything with DNA and fingerprints in the bush. Right across from the dumpster where we just put the jacket at. Dummy, bro.
Determined that the hair found wrapped around one of the jacket's buttons was hers. And another Ring doorbell from the area captured the same man walking back towards the dumpster with a cellophane bag about 40 minutes later at 10:21 a.m. And 3 minutes after that, he was then seen walking back without the bag. So detectives now had the profile of a man who looked extraordinarily suspicious. But they didn't know who he was, at least not for now. And so, in response, they announced a be on the lookout or a bolo around the University of Georgia, sharing this photo of the man by the dumpster with the general public. And as it turns out, they wouldn't have to look very far at all. Now, it's quite a crude saying, but the phrase "don't shit where you eat" initially came to my mind, because as it turns out, this man lived right here at this apartment complex. Tips started flying in about the man in question having the name Jose Antonio Ibarra. And, well, after looking at his profile, he did seem to fit the description perfectly. You see, it wasn't only the fact that he lived right next to the dumpster and the place where Laken was murdered, but he fit the picture perfectly and wasn't the most upstanding of citizens either. And so, with this information, officers decided to pay him a little visit. With their body cams recording every single moment, officers arrived at the property the next day, and you could tell that their concern grew with each passing minute. After knocking on the front window, they realized that Jose was asleep. It quickly became evident that no one in the apartment could fluently speak English, including his brother Diego. And with this being such a sensitive matter, they needed to make sure that they got every question right. After summoning an officer who could speak Spanish, they finally began to ask questions. This was fortunate, as the silence had allowed officers to notice several visible injuries covering Jose's body, including scratches on his arms, wrists, hands, and even neck. When asked about the injuries, Jose claimed that it was simply from the cold, and they are just scratches. However, one officer observed pus oozing from some of the wounds, indicating that they were fresh and perhaps only a day old. They also noticed that Diego was wearing the same hat as seen in the surveillance footage. Additionally, Jose's green card had
That's what I'm saying. You dumbass niggas is out here committing the worst crimes ever and waking up the next day wearing the evidence that you committed the crime in. What type of retarded ass nigga is Jose?
2 different birth dates, suggesting it probably was fraudulent.
He took this
And
girl
so,
life and
with enough concerning information to cook his
Oh,
goose, Jose was arrested on suspicion of murder and taken into custody. But the question now is, who precisely is Jose Ibarra? What else did the police have on him? And could he really have
Why
murdered
did he
Laken
do
Riley?
this?
Well, unfortunately, diving into his profile won't bring
Nigga
you
look
any
sad all the
comfort.
time.
I mean, we all know that nature comes from nurture. But this guy, he was just as corrupt as he was stupid. Nicknamed Victor, Jose Antonio Ibarra was a 26-year-old Venezuelan who illegally entered the United
Badass.
States in September of 2022. He made his way across the southern border near El Paso, Texas, before then
That's the
being
wall?
apprehended by federal authorities. But surprisingly, instead of turning him back, they then released him into the country. Jose initially found refuge at the Roosevelt Hotel migrant shelter in New York, before then catching a flight over to Georgia. He then settled in an apartment complex around 1 mile away from the wooded area where Laken's body was discovered, which, as we know, is the As You Like. It turns out that Jose had a very troubled past, filled with multiple arrests by both federal and state officials in various jurisdictions. In September of 2023, he was arrested in New York City and charged with acting in a manner to injure a child less than 17 and a motor vehicle license violation. The following month, Jose and his brother, who was reported to be a member of a Venezuelan gang, were arrested by Athens police on multiple theft charges. They were both found with stolen merchandise from a local Walmart, but then were later released. And it's quite obvious that Jose hadn't learnt his lesson. By December of 2023, and only a couple months before Laken's murder, he then received
But like, how do you go from doing dickhead shit like stealing out of Walmart to taking a teenager's life in the park and doing nasty stuff to her body?
a bench warrant for his arrest after he failed to appear in court for a shoplifting case in Georgia. I mean, that alone tells you everything you need to know about Jose.
Yep, pretty much.
He was a scumbag with a deep criminal record.
Yep.
And now, he was under the spotlight for murder. It's probably no surprise here, but in light of his background, Laken's death became a deeply divisive political issue for both major parties. Which makes total sense, by the way, because Jose was an illegal immigrant who entered the US not even 2 years prior. And now, he was on trial for murder. And sadly, this isn't the first time I've covered a case with a very similar backstory, such as the case of Molly Tibbetts. It's a very complicated and deep-seated issue, and not one that I'm going to pretend to know much about. However, what I do know is that Jose was on trial for some very horrible crimes, so let's talk about that. Jose was faced with 10 charges, consisting of 3 charges of felony murder, malice murder, false imprisonment, kidnapping, aggravated assault with intent to rape, hindering a 911 call, concealing the death of another, and peeping Tom. He pleaded not guilty to all of these charges, waived his right to a jury trial, and opted for a bench trial, which would then begin on November the 15th, 2024. The prosecution painted a chilling picture of what happened that morning. Laken was simply out for her usual jog on campus when Jose, dressed in a black hooded sweatshirt, black hat, and kitchen gloves, then approached her. He allegedly blocked her path as she tried to call 911 and then launched his attack. It was in that moment that Laken fought back fiercely, scratching Jose's hands, arms, and neck in a desperate attempt to escape. It is believed that he then tried to pull her shirt over her neck before proceeding to assault.
This is why, man, ladies, stop fucking jogging in the park. Y'all can't do it at night. Y'all obviously can't do it during the day. Y'all can't do it in the morning. Stop jogging in the park. Go to the gym or something. Jog around your fucking living room or something. I don't know. Jog in your complex or do something. But jogging in the park, that shit's dead. Stop doing that. Because that's how y'all gonna end up. That's how y'all gonna end up. Stop doing it. Unless you gonna jog around with a gun on you. If you gonna jog around with a gun on you, then cool. But stop. Ladies, please stop jogging around in the park. Look at this cockeyed ass nigga, man. Had no reason. No reason as to why he should have done that. You gonna take that girl life and R-word her in the park on campus. You know how bold of a nigga you gotta be to do this on a college campus? Shit make me. Shit like this, niggas like this is the reason as to why I don't trust the world. And my sister's about to go to fucking college. Ain't that about a bitch, ain't it? She's about to go to college, all the way back home in California.
Assault her. But Laken was not prepared to go without a fight, and when she fought back, he then tragically strangled her before then hitting her head multiple times with a rock. After that, he dragged her body further into the woodland. Jose's defense team argued that all of the evidence was merely circumstantial and speculative. They warned the judge that emotions were driving the case rather than the facts themselves. They would also make several motions to change the trial's location, which was denied, and also tried to exclude several pieces of evidence, indicating that they believed that this legal battle would be very difficult for them to win. It was obvious to everyone that the ball was in the prosecution's court, and this case seemed to be incredibly straightforward from the start. Multiple video cameras captured Jose in the immediate vicinity, which was supported by several eyewitnesses. To add to that, a mountain of solid evidence confirmed that he had direct contact with Laken. This included finding Jose's left thumbprint, which was found on her mobile phone, his DNA being collected from underneath her fingernails, his voice matching the one heard in Laken's phone call to the police.
That's all I need right there. The DNA being collected from underneath her fingernail lets us know what people that all them scratches, that was her fighting for her life. Those are all of her scratches. Bro, this nigga needs to go, bro. For real. I hope they do that nigga the worst way in jail.
And multiple injuries consistent with defensive wounds from the fingernails that had his DNA under them. The trial was a heavy one and was extraordinarily difficult for her family, with her mother having to leave the courtroom multiple times throughout. But thankfully, the trial would not last very long. In contrast to my previous case, which took a total of 7 weeks, Jose's trial lasted only 4 days.
I'll now announce the verdict. In the state of Georgia versus Jose Antonio Ibarra, case SU 24CR0323, count 1, malice murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 2, felony murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 3, felony murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 4, felony murder. I find the defendant guilty.
In the end, he was found guilty of all charges and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. No surprise, and good riddance. I know we've been here several times before on Coffee House Crime, but it is so angering to realize that women can't simply go on a walk or a jog in their local neighborhood without the fear of being assaulted or murdered.
It is, but that's the fucking reality. So like I said, either jog with a gun on you or get your ass on a treadmill, jog around your complex, your neighborhood where you feel safe, or jog with a buddy, jog with someone. Stop getting out here jogging by yourself. Stop. Don't give a fuck about how many Pilates classes you take and how many jujitsu. Forget all that. Doesn't matter, because if a man wants to do something to you, he will be able to do it. And it's horrible. It sucks. It's a fucked up thing that y'all have to go through, but that's life. So stop doing that. Either jog with a buddy or jog with a gun. Get your ass on a treadmill in the gym. But stop doing that, man. This shit sucks.
This very fear strips away the fundamental sense of freedom and security, which otherwise should just be a happy and healthy hobby. And the reality that women must still constantly be on guard, even in their own familiar surroundings, is just another reminder of the inequality that we still face today. Now, of course, there are several things you can do to keep safe while running, including running with a friend or group of people, avoiding isolated areas, staying under well-lit paths, or even taking pepper spray with you. However, while these measures...
Fuck that. Gun. You can't run with a gun, gym, or get a buddy. Preferably 2 of them.
Can help, they are not foolproof solutions. and the ultimate goal is that all women can move freely without fear, which is precisely what Laken was trying to do. Laken was just as headstrong as she was caring. Her smile was extremely infectious, and she spread joy to everywhere she went. It is clear that she had many friends who adored her, just as much as she adored nursing,
Rest in peace to
running,
her, man.
and time away with family and loved ones. She loved to nurture and care for others, and it's a horrible shame that she met her end with the exact opposite. Her family said they planned to establish a foundation in her honor, with her stepfather saying, "She will be missed every day, but we promise to honor her life moving forward in a very big way."
Yes,
Laken's
sir.
funeral was held on March the 1st, 2024 at the Woodstock
Fly-ass
City
Lincoln.
Church. With her story receiving so much attention through the political storm it created, her family opted to keep it private. And on March the 7th, 2024, the House of Representatives passed the Laken-Riley Act in a 251 to 170 vote. If officially enacted, the Laken-Riley Act would mandate federal detention of illegal immigrants who commit burglary or theft, and would allow states to file suit against the federal government for failing to enforce immigration laws. And although it has passed House, it has not yet passed Senate, so I guess we'll see what happens in the coming year or two. A makeshift memorial was made for Riley at Lake Herrick, where an N had been aptly added to the sign in her name. I think there is no better way to end this story than in the words of her pastor. He said, "Laken was special. She was a gift to anyone who knew her. Smart, kind, compassionate, and thoughtful don't even begin to scratch the surface. She was a loving daughter, sister, and friend, and she had a gift for making anyone she was around feel comfortable and seen." You know, after doing this whole true crime thing for a while, you do tend to realize that the same story keeps repeating itself again and again and again. And it does make you wonder, why is nothing being done to stop this from happening in the future? I do find Jose quite interesting because, well, if you look into his eyes, you can see that absolutely nothing is going on upstairs. Maybe that's the reason why he can do something so stupidly violent to someone else. Now, I know this
I
topic
just
is...
don't understand how you can do that. How can you still even get up? You followed her. You took a rock, cracked her upside the head with it. Took her phone. You got scratches all on you. Then you still hard. You rip her clothes off and do what you do. And you finish, and then you try to like, I know they gave him 25 to life, but fuck that, bro. He need to go. Man, for real, niggas like that don't even need to be breathing. Like you a bad batch, nigga. Like, you one of the bad ones. Like, you wasn't supposed to make it through inventory. You were a defect. Like, you shouldn't be okay with doing something like that. Your dick shouldn't even be able to get hard after knowing what you've just done. Yeah, man. Shout out, what's his name? Coffee House Crime. Yes, sir. Got it right. I'm gonna holler at y'all later, man.